like we're on. Folks, if y'all want to be turning in your Bible to the book of Malachi, I know I won't get all this stuff out tonight. I'm just so burdened. I went to that meeting last night, and county commission meeting.
Yeah, it was council meeting like
Council meeting, yeah. I don't know the difference in all that. I guess I should.
Well, you don't deal with it directly.
Well, they know how I feel.
They know how a lot of people feel.
Uh,
They know how a lot of people feel now.
but
But the very idea that anybody would even entertain the thought burdens me. But I wanted to just kind of give you an idea of what's going on here, and I got 2 or 3 other things I wanted to point out, just to keep you in the Word. You know, to make sure you understand. You know, we're on the winning side, and yes, it is discouraging, but we're actually a very blessed people. All right, President Greg Davis held a webinar with Christine Carr to discuss how Christian leaders can stop the spread of marijuana in Alabama. This was December the 6th. Greg Carr is the president of ALCAP. He's like our, kind of like a lobbyist, I guess you'd say, down at Montgomery. And he's sharp. You can tell by watching. I watched the webinar. And he's on top of stuff. But that's his job, you know. And anyway, this woman that was there with him says medical marijuana was legalized in Alabama in the spring of 2021. If you're interested, Connie Rowe and Randall Shedd voted for it. Those are Blount County. They have they bleed over into Blount County. The ones that voted against it, of course, it has Pamela Casey's name on here. She's not a representative. I don't guess she votes on that kind of stuff. District attorney. But anyway, Doug Standridge, Shay Shelnut, Clay Schofield, and Wes Kitchens voted against it. Just in case you're interested.
You know,
David Standridge.
yeah, David.
What I
The
said.
one thing I heard this week was, oh, do you know how much the business license is? Of course, it boils to money.
Oh yeah, almighty dollar.
The state business license for a marijuana processing facility is $30,000, and that's what they're looking for. And that was the first thing I heard. Well, how much you think we can get for a business license? Can we set our business license up like that?
It says we find ourselves with city councilors and county commissioners choosing whether or not to opt in or not, whether or not to let marijuana growth or dispensaries in your county or in your city. How many of you think the education lottery is about education? It isn't. It's the same with this. Medical marijuana is not about medicine. Thought that was a pretty good statement. It's about bringing marijuana into our state. The long game is to bring marijuana in state by state. Every state that has legalized medical marijuana a couple of years later down the road says we must legalize marijuana across the board. I think 5 states that legalized medical marijuana in November also had it on the ballot now to legalize recreational marijuana. 3 of them voted it in. Arkansas rejected it. The lady, Christine Carr, and she is very sharp. Pull it up and watch it. It's Alabama. alsbomb.com. She's traveled the state. She's a volunteer. She's a nurse anesthetist for 25 years. She says Good Day Farm, based in Arkansas, started by an attorney that was once in the state legislature who helped get their medical program passed. That's in Arkansas. Good Day Farm. Once it was passed, he left the legislature and went into business and started Good Day Farm. We have a man in Dothan, Alabama, who's heavily invested with this same company that is now moving into Alabama. So when they say this is Alabama growers only, that's not necessarily correct. There's a lot of outside investors. All right. In Arkansas, they said, no, we'll never bring that up. And what did they do within 2 or 3 years of having medical marijuana? They had it on the statewide referendum intending to put full legalization into their state constitution. So it was on the ballot. And like I said, it is simply the beginning of a progression.
Kind of like you get your foot stuck in the door to get it, your little gap in it.
One of the things she said, once they buy a business license, once they pay what fees, and once they get everything going, the only thing to do after that is to just bring more stuff up later for it to be voted on. And over time, you can't get rid of them because they're there legally. And so, anyway, just to let you know, that's going on, and it is a matter of prayer. I personally don't see that we will hold things off like this forever. I'd love for us to be able to do that, but I remember I grew up my whole life. Well, I moved here when I was about 10 years old or 11 years old in Blount County, and I just didn't think it'd ever go wet.
Yeah,
Sure enough, about 4 or 5 years ago, it went wet.
that was supposed to make the roads better.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah, see, they changed the law to get around the whole county because the county wouldn't go wet, so they could drop back to the town and said, oh, we'll make it where a town with an X amount of population, they can vote themselves whether to go wet. And I was thinking today, let's see, you've got, I think Nectar, Highland Lakes, and Luxembourg are the only 3 municipalities in Blount County that are not wet now.
You said roads,
yeah.
so they want to sell alcohol to make the roads safer.
That's what they said when they
Yeah.
said gave up the money to
Okay.
trade off for the TVA for the money for alcohol sales in Blount County, but it didn't, they ain't really, nothing's better, it's just smoke and mirrors. That's all.
Here's some articles from Prophecy News Watch. I look at that from time to time. Your tax dollars at work. Omnibus bill includes millions for LGBT projects. Omnibus bill was evidently what they just voted on. My understanding of it is just to kind of keep the government going. Anyway, the Senate passed a $1.7 trillion spending bill Thursday, but administrative issues meant that the House will not be able to vote on it before Friday. Did it pass, in the House?
I'm trying to remember.
Seems to me it did.
I want to say it did pass.
The earmarks laid out for the LGBT-themed special interest projects in the omnibus bill include $1.2 million for LGBTQIA+ Pride Centers in San Diego Community College, $1 million for Zora's Hussein, Ohio, a co-working and community space for women and gender-expansive people of color, $3 million for American LGBTQ Museum in New York City, $1 million designated for LGBT Special Service Program as part of the VAWA Granting Fund, $250,000 for Our Lives Matter, a gay rights law archive in Wisconsin, $750,000 for translating a coalition to provide workforce development programs and supportive services for transgender and gender nonconforming and intersex immigrant women in Los Angeles. Tax dollars at work. $105,000 for mentoring program for LGBT youth in the greater Pittsburgh area. $856,000 for LGBT Center in New York. $523,000 for Compass LGBT Youth and Social Services programming. $113,000 for an LGBT Center of Greater Reading, Pennsylvania. $500,000 to establish a staff position for special advisor to advance the human rights of LGBTQIA plus persons. $1.5 million for LGBT Community Center in New York. $750,000 for LGBT and gender nonconforming housing in Albany, New York.
Well, yeah, there ain't nothing in there for our veterans and stuff that homeless,
No.
you know, that's what we need for our veterans and people like that, instead of stuff like that.
Here's another article, Seduced by the Culture. Most Americans believe these top 10 lies. In 2021, the American Worldview Inventory released data analyzing the top 10 most prevalent, seductive, unbiblical ideas embraced by American adults. Number 1, spiritually inclusive idea that having faith matters more than what faith you have.
Say that again.
The spiritually inclusive idea that having faith matters more than what faith you have. It's more important to have faith than to have faith in Jesus. Doesn't matter what your faith's in. As long as you have faith, you're good. Right? You're a person of faith? Yeah, well, you're in. I got faith in them dogs out there to save me. Right?
I got faith in something that hates about the crap out of you if you don't walk them with the skull.
Here's another way of putting it, I guess. All faiths are of equal value. Belief in the Eastern religious concept of karma. These are, most Americans believe these top 10 lies. All right? The dismissal of absolute truth. Commitment to personal subjective morality. That means most people are absolutely committed to the idea that morality is individualistic and that there is no outside standard to which people will ultimately be held accountable. My Bible says it's appointed unto man once to die and after that the judgment, right? Mm-hmm. The idea that people are basically good. We're all sinners, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. Success is determined by happiness, comfort, goodness, or fulfilled potential. How about sexual relations apart from marriage are morally acceptable? This is the top 10 lies that Americans believe. Rejection of the notion that people are inherently sinful. How about this? The purpose of accumulated personal wealth is unrelated to God's purposes. You be a bartender, right? We're against alcohol, right? You sell marijuana, right? Unrelated to God. That's what the purpose of accumulated personal wealth is unrelated to God's purposes. All right? Scripture reference says, so whether you eat or drink or whatsoever you do, do it all for the glory of God. All right, here's another one. Recruitment plummets as Biden military becomes indoctrination zone. The military is struggling mightily to meet their recruitment goals. In August, reports came in that the Army had only recruited about 52% of its goal for fiscal year 2022, and it's likely to wind up short by as many as 15,000 recruits. Significant shortages in personnel are also being reported by the Air Force and the Navy. Meanwhile, Biden's military leaders continue to flounder in woke ideologies that are being pushed on service members. The Post-Millennial reported on September 10th that the Army is now advising military families to apply for food stamps in the midst of rising inflation. With unprecedented shortfalls in recruiting numbers, with service members' families struggling to put food on the table, with Russia mobilizing an additional 300,000 troops to Ukraine, and with China breathing down the neck of Taiwan, what is the left's biggest military concern? Apparently, it's that 128 military bases around the country are not sufficiently close enough to abortion facilities, as Representative Jackie Spear Democrat of California, helpfully pointed out on the House floor Tuesday. Important, isn't it? A concerned Air Force cadet shared the email because he told Fox News it's a little worrying that we have more briefs about diversity and inclusion than briefs about foreign adversaries, emerging technologies, or current events across the world. We must pray for the conversion of the Biden administration. Pretty interesting, isn't it? Here's another one. Atmosphere of lawlessness. Attacks on churches nearly triple in 4 years. Offenders committed at least 420 acts of hostility against 397 separate churches in the U.S. between January 2018 and September 2022. These cases include everything from arson and gun-related violence to vandalism and bomb threats. The copiously documented 84-page report specifies. The spike in anti-Christian hate crimes cannot be dismissed as an anomaly of one report, since the FBI counted 240 anti-Christian hate crimes in 2021, up from 172 in 2018. So,
This is not U.S. related, but I read an article where in Guyana they passed a law that like this time of year, the preachers cannot preach and say, hey, you know, more or less like prophesy, you know, about bad things gonna happen if you don't straighten up, or if you don't change your ways. They can be arrested for the cause they're spreading fear.
need to put the fear of God in them, right? Here's the last one. Long-term trends that are slowly killing America. Americans' positive self-assessment of their mental health are the lowest in more than 10 decades of Gallup polling. In all, only 31% of U.S. adults describe their mental health or emotional well-being as excellent, the worst rating by 3 percentage points. Only 44% of Americans rate their mental health as good. This combined 75%, excellent and good, rating is the lowest on record and 10 points shy of the average since 2001. In addition, 17% of U.S. adults describe their mental health as only fair and 7% as poor. CNN survey, 9 out of 10 adults said they believe that there's a mental health crisis in the U.S. today. Mental health.
Clinton used that word.
Americans put the opioid epidemic near the top, with more than 2/3 of people identifying it as a crisis rather than merely a problem. More than half identified mental health issues among children and teenagers as a crisis, as well as severe mental illness in adults. In June 2020, the CDC released data that suggests 1 in 4 adults ages 18 to 24 have considered suicide. What happens when you're feeling down, defeated, or depressed? We go to the doctor and get some pills. Right? The Federal Drug Enforcement Administration is out with an astounding statistic. Federal drug agents have seized enough doses of fentanyl this year to kill every single American. They gave those numbers. I didn't write them down. The United States population right now is 333 million. In 2022, the U.S. fentanyl seizures by federal drug agents have been 379 million doses. So there's more, confiscated more than enough fentanyl to kill every adult, every person in the U.S. Federal drug agents seized enough doses to kill every single American. Okay. Right now we're dealing with the worst drug crisis in the entire history of our nation, and it's getting worse with each passing year. 106,699 Americans died of drug overdoses last year. It's 2021. According to final figures released this week. That's nearly 16% higher than nearly 92,000 overdoses in 2020. People killing themselves with drugs. Right? 106,699 Americans died in 2021 of drug overdoses. Okay? I saved this one last. This is what I want to talk about. In recent years, church attendance and church membership have both been absolutely plummeting in the United States. The share of Americans who belong to churches dipped below half in 2020, a historic low according to Gallup polling. Church membership held steady at around 70% of the U.S. population from the 1940s through the 1990s. Membership plummeted in the new millennium. So, does that have anything to say about these other things we've been talking about? Exactly. So I wanted to look at the book of Malachi. Where is Malachi in the Bible? It's the last book in the Old Testament. It's also the last one written. The Numbers, read you what the study Bible says. It says, looking solely at internal evidence, the date of the prophecy points to the late 5th century BC, most likely during Nehemiah's return to Persia. You can read about that in the book of Nehemiah. That was from 433 to 424 BC. All right. 433 to 424 BC. And so this is the last word that we actually have from a prophet in the canon. And so it gives us a glimpse of when God got fed up with trying to tell us through the prophets. Right? Sacrifices were being made at the second temple. You know, they came back, right? They had the deportations. 586, Jerusalem fell. They deported thousands. They kept them over in Babylon and Persia area and all. 70 years goes by, just like Jeremiah says. Cyrus lets them go back, right? 50-something thousand of them traveling back, to Israel. They rebuild the wall. You read about it, Ezra, Nehemiah. They rebuild the wall. They rebuild the temple. The temple's finished in 516 BC. So from 516 BC to when old Malachi here is writing is about 80 years. 516 to 433, when Nehemiah left, that's 83 years. So basically you've got one whole generation of people after the temple was built. So they've been sacrificing, right? They've been doing their thing. It's what they want to do again now. I read an article about the red heifers. They have to be so. They can't be 2 hairs. 1 hair is okay, but if there's more than 2 hairs that's not red, the heifer's not good. You got to get another heifer. And you have to have a red heifer for the sin offering. So they have to do the sin offering before they can start the sacrifices in the new temple when they get it built. So they're trying to find the red heifer that's perfect. Perfect sacrifice. No blemish. Right? Interesting. Read about that stuff. All right. So let's look at chapter 1, verses 6 through 8. The word contemptible simply means held in contempt, mean, low, worthless is a good definition. Contemptible. Here's another definition. Obsolete, full of contempt, scornful. All right. The feeling that something is worthless, contemptible. All right. Beginning in verse 6. A son honoreth his father, and a servant his master. If then I be a father, where is my honor? And if I be a master, where is my fear? Saith the Lord of hosts unto you, O priest. Uh-oh. Getting on to the leaders. All right? Pay attention. O priest, that despise my name. And you say, wherein have we despised thy name? You offer polluted bread upon my altar. And you say, wherein have we polluted thee? In that you say, the table of the Lord is contemptible, of no value, right? And if you offer the blind for sacrifice, is it not evil? And if you offer the lame and sick, is it not evil? Offer it now unto thy governor. Will he be pleased with thee, or accept thy person, saith the Lord of hosts? Right? A son honoreth his father, verse 6, and a servant his master. And then they say, wherein have we despised thy name? Right? God is blaming the priest for the shape that the country's in.
The priests were more or less their government, wasn't it?
The holy people. They were the responsible party for seeing to it that the people knew what the truth was. They were the ones that God's holding responsible. Oh, priest. Right? God is saying the priests are the responsible party. He is accusing the priest of despising his name. Right? Verse 6, O priest that despise my name. God's accusing the priest of despising it. And what are they saying? What are you talking about, despise your name? Right? That's what the priests are saying, right? Right? God is saying the priests are trying to defend themselves by claiming ignorance. Agreed? Well, I don't know what you're talking about, God. Don't say I despise. I love you. Right? Okay, verse 7. You offer polluted bread on my altar, and you say, wherein have we polluted thee? In that you say, the table of the Lord is condemned. Offering polluted bread on the altar means the priests were accepting polluted bread from the people. They would bring the bread. Right? The people brought the bulls, the people brought the goats, the people brought the sheep, the people brought the bread. They would accept the moldy bread. And they would offer it. Right? The priests were not holding the people to a standard. Get that bread out of here. Don't you bring stuff like that up here. This is the house of the Lord. Right? Okay. Not holding people accountable and telling them their sin. Oh. Y'all know where I'm going with this, don't you? God doesn't blame the people for bringing the polluted bread. God blames the priest for accepting the polluted bread. It's getting down to your church leaders here, isn't it? Okay. When the priests say the table of the Lord is contemptible, they're trying to place the blame on the people. Well, that's what they bring in us, Lord. The Lord said, no. That's what you're accepting. Right? Verse 8. If you offer blind sacrifice, is it not evil? If you offer lame and sick, is it not evil? Offer it unto thy governor. Will he be pleased with thee, or accept thy person, saith the Lord of hosts? Offering polluted, moldy bread is just as evil as offering blind, lame, or sick bulls. We've talked about this before. I've referenced this lately. Verse 10. Interesting. Who is there even among you that would shut the doors for naught? Neither do you kindle fire on my altar for naught. I have no pleasure in you, saith the Lord of hosts, neither will I accept an offering at your hand. I had to look this up because I couldn't get it out of King James, and here's a different version. It says, oh, that there were one among you who would shut the doors, that you might not kindle a fire on my altar in vain. I have no pleasure in you, says Yahweh of the armies, neither will I accept an offering at your hand. Basically, God is saying, please, would just one of you priests be bold enough to say, no, shut the doors, we're not accepting that. Would one of you priests please be strong enough to not put up with it? That's what God's saying in verse 10. But there's not a priest, not one among you that'll do it. You just let things go on like they are. Right? Verses 11 and 12. From the rising of the sun even to the going down of the same, my name shall be great among the nations, Gentiles. And in every place incense shall be offered unto my name, and pure offering. For my name shall be great among the heathen, saith the Lord of hosts. But ye have polluted it. You've polluted my name. You have profaned my name. Ye have profaned my name, in that you say, the table of the Lord is polluted, and the fruit thereof, even his meat, is contemptible. God is saying, when you priests accept less than I require, and then turn around and complain and say my provision is worthless, verse 11, you are profaning my name. Verse 11. His name. When preachers, here we go. When you preachers preach less than I require, in other words, not preaching the whole counsel of God, when you preachers preach less than I require, and then you wonder why marijuana is coming to your county. Millions of tax dollars are spent on LGBT queer projects. Unbiblical ideas have been embraced by American adults. The military has become an indoctrination zone. Attacks on churches have tripled in the last 4 years. There's an opioid epidemic. Federal drug agents seize enough doses of fentanyl to kill every American, all 133 million of us. There were 106,699 Americans die of drug overdoses in 2021. And wonder why church attendance has plummeted since 2000. You're profaning my name. All right. Verse 12. But you have profaned it, in that you say the table of the Lord is polluted, and the fruit thereof, even the meat, is contemptible. Verse 6. A son honors his father, and a servant his master. If I then be a father, where is my honor? And if I be a master, where is my fear, saith the Lord of hosts? Unto you, O preachers, that despise my word. And you say, wherein have we despised your word? Verse 7. You offer watered down services to my sanctuaries. Right? Verse 8. And if you offer watered down sermons, is it not evil? Preaching watered down sermons is just as evil as offering blind, lame, or sick bulls. Verse 14. But cursed be the deceiver that has been privileged with a pulpit and doesn't preach the whole counsel of God. Right? But cursed be the deceiver which hath in his flock a male, and voweth and sacrifices unto the Lord a corrupt thing. For I am a great king, saith the Lord of hosts, and my name is dreadful among the nations. A man that has been given a pulpit has a responsibility to use it to preach God's word from front to back. And when that doesn't happen, you see things happen like we're seeing in our country. I can just hear God saying, just give me one preacher that'll preach the truth. Brother Sellers told me last night, brother, what we need is to stand flat-footed behind the pulpit and preach the whole counsel of God. And he's right. Homosexuality is nothing but sodomy. It's pure evil. It's the way it is. We know that to be the truth. Right? It brings God's judgment. All right? Chapter 2, verses 1 and 2. Good gracious alive, we're not going to get through. And now, ye priests, this commandment is for you, if you will not hear, and if you will not lay it to heart to give glory unto my name, saith the Lord of hosts, I will even send a curse upon you, and I will curse your blessings. Yea, I have cursed them already, because you do not lay it to heart. Right? And now, O ye preachers, same thing. Preachers, look at verse, we'll close here because it's time to quit. Look at verse 7, chapter 2, verse 7. For the priest's lips should keep knowledge, and they should seek the law at his mouth. Look at what it says. Oh my God, have mercy. For he is the messenger of the Lord of hosts. That is your responsibility. Folks, I expect y'all to hold me accountable. I want you to. I need you to. And I'm assuming you want me to hold you accountable. It's just the way it is. Okay.
Can I share something?
Yeah.
I've been upset about this too, because, especially in Jocelyn's line of work, we realize how important it is that we take a stand against this, because it is gonna lead to more stuff. But I was watching a program, I think I told you about it, about a place in California where they are just allowing people to do drugs and deal drugs, because they don't want it to spread out, so they overlook it.
Safe zone.
That's right, but it's like the lady who was telling about this, she said, first of all, when they start talking recreational drugs, there is no such thing. These drugs were made illegal for a reason to begin with, because they are harmful and unsafe and deadly and destructive. And I thought, that is so true. I never thought about it that way. There is no such thing. And I wish I could remember her name to give her credit, because I thought, good for you. Somebody who's got and I've been thinking about this while you've been talking about having the courage to stand up against these things. And when I was at one of my trainings, and even I know how bad drug use is because of what I dealt with in my social work career, they did a survey in Alabama state prisons. 90% of the inmates admitted to drug use, and that started their downhill journey into crime. They did a survey of people who were in substance abuse programs. Guess which drug 95% of those started with?
I know exactly what y'all with.
It's a gateway drug. It's not a recreational drug. It is just gonna lead down a path that people just have no idea. I'm very passionate about this. because
Yeah, I am too.
I've seen what it does.
It is 100%, absolutely, without a doubt, the beginning of a progression. You can say all day long, well, no, all they want to do is use it for medicine.
This goes back to the old saying the mamas and the daddy used to say, give them an inch and they'll take a mile.
That's right. What you say, Brother Cosette?
I said, if they make it legal, the people that don't need marijuana program, he gonna give it to somebody that don't need it, and he's gonna buy some more and all that. It's just gonna spread like wildfire.
That's right. Spread like wildfire.
He asked him one day, and he said, I see nothing, and even with him.
Most people I seen that smoke that stuff, and they're like, this stuff ain't working no more. My grandmother in the state of Michigan, she used to get medical marijuana before she died, and her kids would steal it from her and smoke it. And all of them led from, like Miss Malia said, from the marijuana to crack and cocaine and now meth and all. And if you get caught manufacturing that stuff more than 2 times, you should be sent to death. That's a destroyer, but they don't wanna do that or anything.
Oh, no,
No.
part of them use it.
No. But I mean, if you get one drug dealer, 20 minutes later, another one's gonna step up in a spot. But if you start making it harsh and stuff, saying, well, we're gonna give you 3 strikes, and then we're gonna exterminate you, there won't be so many people willing to step up, you know? Cut the
We know
snake
that to
off.
be the truth.
Yeah, but they don't wanna do that or nothing.
Marijuana, well, they created the circuit too, didn't he?
Folks, we need to have word prayer, be dismissed.
I was gonna say this before we dismiss. This,
Okay, go ahead.
in a way, kinda goes along with what I've been reading about Jesus in the garden.
Yep.
You know, and when they was in the garden, he told them, he said, can you not pray, can you not watch with me 1 hour? You know, they fell asleep on him, and that's what the thought I've had this week is, have we fell asleep on him? Have we fell asleep on Jesus?
It's a good point. It's a good point. All right, let's stand. Let's go ahead and stand and we'll have a little prayer. Jerry, Leland, brother, dismiss us, would you please?
Father, we thank you for this time that you give us together, God. Help us to stay strong in these storms, rooted in the Word of God and the truth. Guided by the Holy Spirit, God. Fill us with your power and wisdom, God, and guide us. And let that light of Jesus shine through us to help us in these troubled times. In Jesus' name we pray.
Amen. Thank you.
How big are your chickens?
That's like me,